What's going on, guys? Back in the shop today. Today we have a Honda generator that needs a carb cleaning, and you can find these carburetors. These are on a lot of different Honda engines. They're all going to be the same. So these principles will work. Doesn't matter what kind of engine you got. As long as it's a Honda, sometimes even a Chinese knockoff Honda will have this kind of carburetor on it. So let's get into it. So the first thing we want to do is pull off the sediment bowl and the float bowl. And what we're going to need is we're going to need a 10mm wrench, grab a little glass pail or something to catch the fuel in, put it on loose end, that helps. Drop the sediment bowl, catch the fuel. And you want to keep track of all your little parts. Get a little piece of paper down, newspaper, paper towel. Just make sure you keep an order of how you take this apart so you can put it back together. Now by the look of that, that's been sitting for a while. That is aged fuel, and that is extremely dirty. And it looks like they had water in there at one time, all the rust built up in that float bowl. We'll have to clean all that out. Okay, so another thing that is very important, there is a brass main metering jet in here with two little tabs on each side. That is very soft. You have to make sure that you have a perfect screwdriver that fits in those little notches. Otherwise, you're gonna strip those ears off and you'll never be able to get that jet out. So this is what I use, but you wanna make sure that it fits in there perfect. Nice and tight. And then, loosen it, should come right out. But if those ears strip off, it's done. Sometimes I notice it helps if you tap it on the table to get some vibrations to get it out. So this is a metering jet. This is what controls the amount of fuel going through your carburetor. And these are these little tabs I'm telling you about. So the screwdriver has to perfectly fit in those tabs in order to get it out correctly. Now what happens with a lot of different screwdrivers is they get bigger on the side and they won't fit in the stem of the carburetor. So I like this one works good. This is by S&K. Now we have to get the emulsion tube out. If you look down the carburetor, there's a little brass tube coming off right in the middle. Right down in the middle there. So, what we're gonna do, come on over here and push down on that tube. Push it down. It should come out the stem here. There it goes. So this is the emulsion tube. And it has all these little holes in it that they all clogged up. We have to clean these out. So, keep track of what you're doing. Put all your parts, together. Now pull out your float pen. That's your float pen. Here's your float, and that's your needle valve. So, now we have the carburetor disassembled. So now we have to get a pilot jet out, and this is our throttle adjustment right here. So we want to count how many turns in it goes. 1, 8.5 turns. So now we know where to set it when we put it back together. Now this is our pilot jet with also the, you can call it a low speed. And to pop this out, you just get underneath it with a flathead and lift up on it. So just be careful, it's plastic. Pull it out of there, and this is what it looks like. Now this has little O-rings on it, and if these little O-rings fail, it's not going to seal correctly, and you have to replace them. So now we have to clean the carburetor now that we got it all disassembled. So carb spray, spray it, up the stem. Spray all the passageways out. Now we have the staining on the stem. We can use steel wool to clean that up. The biggest thing is we want to make sure that all the passageways are clear in the carburetor. A little more carb spray. It's always a good idea to hit it with some compressed air. This is where your low speed goes in. Spray down that hole. Another thing you want to check is after your throttle plate and the side of the body of the carburetor, there's a small tiny little hole right here in the body. So what we want to do is spray in the face on the left side in this port right here, and make sure it comes out of that hole after the throttle plate. Okay, and now spray in the other hole, make sure it comes out of the stem, and then spray down in the idle passage. So everything is clear in the carburetor body. Now, hit it with some compressed air. And look at the fuel that came out of this. That's nasty. Yellowing, you got rust, you got water. Small engines don't like that. And to clean this carburetor bowl, see how pitted and rusty and nasty it is? Spray it out with some carb spray. Don't spray it in your eye, that would hurt. Take some steel wool and just rub it, clean it all up. Alright, now that we got our carburetor real nice and clean, oh yeah, that's real nice. That's pretty clean. Spray it out again with some carb spray, set it aside. Alright, now we have to clean out our main jet. And this is called the metering jet. And what we use for this is, these are called tip cleaners. You can get these on Amazon. They work great for cleaning carburetors. So find one that fits. Push it through. That one's too big. And keep going down in sizes until you get one that fits in there. All right. Now you don't want to file the metering jet because then you'll be allowing more fuel to go in there. But what you want to clean it, you want to make sure that it's clear. Once you believe that it's clear, hit it with some carb spray. Should spray through. All right, so that's clean. Now on to the emulsion tube. Spray it and hold it up to a light. You should be able to see through the little holes in the emulsion tube. And when I just looked up to the light, I couldn't see through them. So what we have to do is the same process. We'll take the tip cleaner, find a small wire, and poke it through every one of these little holes going up the emulsion tube. And some of them are pretty small. So small, in fact, that you have to cut a wire off a wire brush and use that as a poker. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'll poke a hole in every one of these holes here. Then we'll spray it out with carb cleaner again. Carb spray through it. Be careful not to spray it in your eyes. And then just keep using your tip cleaner. Run it down through the emulsion tube. Hit it with some carb spray again. Oh yeah, I can see right down the, I don't know if you guys can see that, but you can see right down the center of the emulsion tube. Now if you look down through the light, you can see light through the holes on the side of the emulsion tube. That's what you want. You want to make sure everyone's clear. Now we have to clean the idle circuit. Well, this is the low speed, and the majority of the problems I see is in the end of this low speed. There's a really tiny small hole that you can only fit in there with a piece of small wire, and that little tiny hole is one of the first things to get clogged up. And what happens is if this is clogged, you get a surging condition where the engine will go up and down, surging away. So what you want to do is make sure that this is clear, and you can see the wire go through there. And then we'll replace the O-ring on the bottom of the jet. And what happens is this is clogged, you'll get a surging condition on high speed when the engine's revved up, and it won't idle. So what this does is it feeds the engine fuel on its low speed circuit, so on the idle circuit. And on a side note also, it's also pulling through this circuit at high speed. And we have to replace this O-ring on the bottom of this low speed jet. So get a pick and pick the O-ring off the bottom of this jet. Takes a little bit of patience. And that O-ring was so brittle, it just snapped in half. Now these are very special O-rings. It has to be a certain size. Now, put that on, and now we got a new O-ring. So now the low speed's good. Clean off the float. Just use some carb spray and some paper towel. It's plastic, you don't gotta go crazy on it. But you just wanna get off that residue. Clean it all up. And we can start reassembling. Now, what we want to do, this is the needle. You want to inspect it and make sure that the tip's good. This one is pretty good shape still. We'll test it once we put it back together. Goes back in the carburetor, or back into the float like this. Okay. With the spring. Okay, now we're gonna take the float, we're gonna set it down into the seat. And before I forget, we should clean the seat. And what we should do is use a Q-tip to clean the seat. So spray a little bit of carb spray on the Q-tip. Stick it down, don't go crazy. You just want to kind of rotate it, clean the seat here. There, now the seat's clean. Take your float, set it down into the carburetor, grab your float pin, slide it through. Okay. Now it shouldn't bottom out. It should be almost level. But with this plastic seat and plastic float, this is non-adjustable. So there's nothing you can do there. Now, what you want to do is you want to take your main emulsion tube, stick it down with the nozzle at the top and the flat end facing up. So like it goes in there like this. Okay, followed by your metering jet. Now this doesn't have to be crazy tight. Just snug it up, because you really don't want to strap that soft brass. Put just a little bit of motor oil on your finger, not even a drop, just a little bit of residue, and lubricate the O-ring on the low speed. Okay, now that it's lubricated, we can insert it back into the body of the carburetor, pressing it all the way down until you hear it click. Okay, now your throttle adjustment screw. Insert that. Turn it in. And then repeat the process all the way in and then back out the amount of turns you counted. Which was how many?
8.5.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. Now we want to pressure test the needle in the carburetor. So I have my pop-off tool here with a little homemade adapter. I'm going to push that on the inlet where the fuel line would go on. Make sure the fuel is open and pump it up, and then make sure that it holds pressure. It should not have a leak down. And this one's holding about 3 psi or so. Another way to test to see if it's holding pressure is just to blow into the inlet where the fuel would go in and listen and make sure that it's not leaking at all. So that's all there is to cleaning a Honda carburetor. If you like this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, subscribing to this channel, I really appreciate it. Just getting used to this stuff, so bear with me. You know, I'm not really that good at it, so I'm just getting used to it. But if you'd give me a thumbs up and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.